Okay, as in go? Sorry, 1 second.
Forktales, a podcast that feeds the food and beverage world.
Oh, awesome. Forktales is brought to you by Vigor, a branding and marketing agency for passion-driven, innovative restaurant, beverage, and hospitality brands. Learn more at vigorbranding.com. If you love what we're serving up, please give Forktales a 5-star review on your podcast service of choice. Think of it as a tip for good service. Everyone, this week I am joined by my friend and social media maverick, Gonca Esendemir. She is the founder of Flatbread Grill and Thumbread, and we're going to talk all about that journey and all about what she's all about. But for now, say hello, give a little backstory.
Hi, I'm Gonca. I started a fast casual Mediterranean restaurant concept in 2007 with my two sisters, Arzu and Fisun, while I was still in college. I'm the chief marketing officer. I take care of marketing, social media, communications for that brand, and also for our new brand, which is a consumer packaged goods product, Thumbread. It's a spin-off from our restaurant brand. And I also take care of the marketing, communications, social media for that as well with my sisters. Arzu is the CEO, and my big sister is the chief financial officer of both companies.
Awesome. So we're working with two sisters, I imagine, has its benefits, but also I'm sure there's some people out there like, I could not imagine working with my family. How has that dynamic been over the years?
It's gotten better. Obviously, when I was in college, I was in a different space. I was, interning in the music industry. I had a little bit of a wild and crazy social life. I was kind of bouncing around from job to job, and my sisters were definitely had a more linear path. Arzu knew right after high school that she was going to work to save up money to put herself through college, and that's basically what she did throughout her entire college career. It was basically going to work, going to class, going to work, going to class. No real social life. And then my big sister obviously has just been, she's the first child of immigrant parents. So she had a world of responsibility growing up, and she's always been very focused and responsible. So I'm the middle sister. So there, there was some adjustments to be made there. But overall, we share the same values, and we were raised, essentially in the same way: to be kind, to be conservative and humble, modest, to be hardworking, to focus on success. So those core values is really what helps us get us through the difficult times, the arguments, the petty fights, and also just going back to our why, which is family. The three of us support our parents, and essentially, no matter what we're arguing about, what we're going through, it's our parents. That's bigger than anything. So we always kind of come back to that why, that motivation, and put aside our differences.
I think that's the power of why, right? Is when everybody's bought in, it's easy to like put a pause on things, take a step back and say, is this living? Do we need to take a minute? Let's go back to our corners.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love that all three of you understand that that's what purpose is really all about.
Yes.
So you mentioned the Flatbread Grill was started in 2007. It's a Mediterranean concept. I think you also mentioned that. Why bring that to market? What was the passion behind just the brand in general?
So at the time, my family was going through some difficulties. My father had gotten very sick. He needed open heart surgery. We didn't have health insurance. My father's been an entrepreneur for his entire life. So, there was there was a bit of poverty in our background. So health insurance wasn't actually a thing, and he
Hmm.
needed, medical care. And at the time, my big sister Fisoon was, supporting our family as much as she could, and she had a great corporate job that eventually ended up letting her go. And we grew up in the restaurant industry. My father had restaurants growing up, and we all love food. I think anyone that knows us will tell you we'll always choose eating over anything else.
I love it.
So, Pieces said, I don't think I want to go back to working corporate. And she had been working her entire life, whether it was as a teenager, my father's restaurant, running his restaurants when she was 13 years old, or getting her first internship in the electronics field when she was like right out of high school.
Mm.
So she decided she would rather work for herself. And RZ was just graduating from college with a double degree in business and finance. And she was kind of at a crossroads, like, do I go work on Wall Street? Do I go to grad school? Do I go to law school? So the two of them decided that they would start a restaurant. And I was kind of, floating around in my life trying to figure out what I was going to do if I was ever going to graduate. Having your usual 20-something-year-old, I've confused what's next in my life.
The quarter life
And
crisis, as we call it, right?
yes, which I have nearly every day of my life still. So, they're like, "Hey, do you want to start a restaurant with us?" And I'm like, "Hey, get in. We're gonna go start a restaurant." I was like, "All right, cool. I got nothing else going on." And that was it. And then Arzu really, she's just a genius. I wish she could be on this podcast, but we really have different schedules these days. But she was like, we're going to do differentiation, and we're going to have a brand, and we're going to have something for every. She had a very, very strong vision of what she wanted this concept to be. And it was, 2007, like people were doing that. They were
Right.
building restaurant concepts. So she was very much ahead of her time. She was only 23 years old, probably one of the youngest fast casual restaurant founders in this entire industry. Um, and and that was basically it. And we used our upbringing, our love of traditional Turkish food, and made it accessible to people. And it was really important to kind of maintain our cultural background in the menu. Um, my father wouldn't have had it any other way, but it just came together beautifully, and it really worked.
Yeah. It's interesting because, the shame of the culinary world, or maybe just the way consumers see it, is we have to rope together such a large swath of geography and cultures underneath one title, which is Mediterranean.
Yes.
And it's not this isn't a complaint or the beginning of an activist speech by any means. It's only a shame because there are similarities, but there are
Hmm.
notable differences. So, like, I think I've
Yes.
said it on the podcast. I'll say it again. My friends, if they're listening, are going to roll their eyes. I think Lebanese hummus is the best hummus.
It is
Like,
very good. Yes.
it's really, they nailed it. They're good at it. High five. It's my favorite, but you'll find hummus in Turkish food as well. You're going to find
Well,
hummus
we
in
taught
Greek
the
food.
Lebanese how to make it, so
Oh, okay. I love it. Okay, great.
we did rule the Ottoman Empire. If I'm just repeating what my father has repeated throughout his entire restaurant career, what people ask him is, we did rule the Ottoman Empire. So I
That's
mean,
true.
there's a lot of conflict there with the Greeks and the Armenians and the Lebanese and the Syrians of who really was responsible. But those cultures became enmeshed at some point. But
Yeah.
I will tell you that I think Lebanese people come very, very close to, Turkish, what we consider Turkish food. But I think they do a tremendous job. They really do.
Yeah, and maybe it's the French colonization that kind of helped them uplift their hospitality or whatever,
Could be.
one of those things. But I think what's interesting though is, like, you really, if somebody were to offer me, for instance, different kinds of hummus, like, I have a preference, but I'm
Me
I'm
too. Me
well
too.
traveled as it pertains to the culinary world. However, if you could help for those that aren't familiar with Turkish food, would you be able to give some examples and descriptions?
Hmm. So Turkish food is very popular in Europe, and it's not as popular here as Mexican food and pizza and um, Chinese food. So it introducing that into the market was going to be difficult. And my father originally didn't want us to do traditional Turkish food, and there was a little bit of an uproar in the Turkish community when we started getting press and we were in the New York Times, because people thought that we were butchering Turkish food. Turkish people are they
Wow.
tend to be very traditional. My father has a Turkish doctor, a Turkish mechanic, a Turkish accountant. So they tend to be very traditional and stick to tradition. So we were really the trendsetters, and we were the first to take, to take hummus and scoop it onto a salad. That was unheard of. Or to, change the chicken marination to, you know, be a little bit more intense. The shepherd salad, we made it the chopped tomato salad. Some people know it as an Israeli salad. Even that, we changed the recipe and the way we make it. So people were not Turkish people were not used to that. I mean, now you can see our influence in people in traditional Turkish menus, but back then we were kind of thinking outside the box and really, we like to eat tzatziki with as a sauce on our kebabs, and Turkish people actually serve that as a dip. They don't serve it as a sauce. Now they serve it as a sauce because it's the mainstream thing to do with Middle Eastern Mediterranean food.
Right.
But your basic staples of, kebabs, doner. There's a lot of meats. I don't think Turkish people do as much with the spices as other cultures do. We like to keep it simple.
Hmm.
Um, but a big part of our menu was also our bread, which was different and a big differentiator for us. But your standard staples, feta cheese is really big for us, and any Mediterranean, Middle Eastern um, menu is going to have feta cheese. We had your traditional things like stuffed grape leaves, börek, lahmacun, which is a Turkish pizza, but those things didn't do as well as something like our Mediterranean chicken was
Sure.
extremely popular on our menu, or Greek salad. And we did do some pizzas, but the Turkish pizza unfortunately did not work out. It's still not as popular here in this country, outside of traditional Turkish restaurants. So,
So the Turkish pizza, is that kind of like a za'atar?
so it's basically minced meat with seasoning. There's no sauce, and the meat has to be fresh. It always has to be very fresh. You'll hardly ever walk into a Turkish restaurant and find it not prepared that day. Or actually, when we were preparing we were taking the mincemeat and seasoning right before we made the pizzas, and it's in a
Hmm.
very, very thin crust. So it's kind of like an open face. I want to say empanada, but it's not fried. It's baked. So
Yeah. Okay. I've seen this before. So the meat itself, it almost looks like really finely ground beef
yes,
with
hmm
reddish, a brown
yes,
reddish
yes,
orange hue to it, and then it's like
yes.
almost covers the entire flatbread.
Yeah, and it's really, and if
Fantastic.
you can get it, like it's actually really good if you can get it at the right place.
Yeah.
And we did a good job with it and making it, but again, we didn't serve it in the traditional way with the the toppings. So it didn't really work for our menu.
Sure. Yeah. I think what's interesting is like I think the Turkish culture, as it pertains to culinary, is getting more and more traction as time goes on. You're gonna
Hmm
maybe hate me for this, but Salt Bay definitely put Turkish Turkish flair on the map, right? Um, so that's
Now I
great.
know how people feel like when people were equating us with Turkish food back then because we were so out there, and now to hear you like equate Salt Bae
Right.
as to hear Turkish shit. I love what he's done. It's really entertaining, and it's amazing because this is a brutal industry. So to see somebody come up like that, I love it. But I think I don't. I've looked at his menu. I don't know that I know that there's influences of Turkish food, but I think he deals a lot with, steaks and
Yeah.
meats and just kind of doing his own spin on it, which I think is fabulous. I wish every restaurant owner would do that instead of, stealing ideas from other people.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be nice, right? I mean, but this world is iteration, right? I create. There is no original thought. Is
Hmm.
what some people will say. It's just iterations on what's been.
Yes.
I think what I loved about that whole moment for him, and he still has restaurants. And I think one is in
Yeah.
Vegas. He still does well.
Hmm.
Is whether you like him or hate him, you can't deny that the man was passionate about his craft, about
Yeah.
his food, and it shows. So the
Hmm.
reason why I know about Turkish pizza is because I somehow from a Salt Bay video went into the guy who I think started doing those videos for him.
Hmm.
And he also has a number of other personalities that he works on. And so I've seen them make that pizza. So I have to try it next time I get an
Well, that's
opportunity.
that's see, that's a nice thing though. That's really that's something that is it is just nice to hear that because knowing that someone that wouldn't have ever discovered Turkish pizza has access to it because of the internet. That's really good. I like
And
to
social.
hear that. Yeah, that's awesome.
And so speaking of social, you're an absolute like icon on social media,
Debatable.
LinkedIn.
Debatable.
I mean,
Because I
you're
think
active.
later on today, I'm going to tell my sisters, Alyssa, I'm an icon on
That's
social
right.
media. They're going to be like, yeah, whatever, wash the dishes.
I'll send you a cutout of a blue check so you can carry it around just to prove it. Um, so how has your activity on social media helped grow the Flatbreads Grill brand and then the Thumb Bread brand, which we'll talk
Hmm.
about in a second?
So, when we started out, it was, I think Twitter was just coming up. Facebook was still for college kids, and LinkedIn was still just a job hunting tool. We came up in a very different time. I know I'm dating myself, and I sound like oh, back in my day, but we had to really rely on word of mouth. I look back and I'm like, wow, if we had TikTok back then, like it would have been amazing to bring people into our environment and show them and document and give them behind the scenes. And, when we were young and we had a lot of energy and we were vivacious enough to want to do that. So we had to really work on building through word of mouth. And then the social media started happening and we were like, "Oh, we should probably look into this and explore." But we were very apprehensive at first because what we were the only woman doing what we were doing, not only in the industry, just in cultural wise. There's Turkish American women
Hmm.
are not starting restaurants. They're not starting brands, not without the help of their husbands or their brothers. Or so we were very much a female founded brand, and it was unheard of. So in the restaurant industry, so we were apprehensive, and it took a little bit of like dipping our feet in until we got warmed up, and um, you know, we thought, okay, well, this is kind of like there's something here. So we're we had to be very mindful because we are aligned with the brand. So how we use social media and it's important to us like, what image we convey online because people do associate us with our brands. It's been really helpful in reaching a worldwide audience. I've had the pleasure of speaking with people online who are across the country or across the world. They're like, oh, I've heard about your restaurant. I followed you and your sisters and so. And I'm like, wow, like it's crazy that people really are keeping up to date. So I love that it's helped us connect with people and build that bridge. Um, and I think I just learned as I went along. I've always been kind of like a little tech nerd. I was building websites as soon as like I had a desktop computer in
Yeah.
high school. So it just it comes naturally because I like storytelling. I see myself as a storyteller, and I love writing. That's one of the reasons LinkedIn is probably one of my favorite platforms. Is I get to tell stories on there, and it's less of a visual medium, and it's been significant in that I can stay connected to people and I can forge real connections and I could meet new people that I would otherwise not really have been able to meet because I spent a lot of time working in my restaurants. So
That's
there was
right.
the outside world. The only way I was really connected to it was, through digital mediums. Um, but yeah, it's just it's been terrific because people know about the brand and they're exposed to it, that and they would otherwise not be exposed to it if it wasn't for social media. But in
Yeah.
terms of like my Maven, my iconic skills, really that's just all learned through trial and error, you know.
Well, I think that's a good point because I feel like a lot of people almost get paralyzed by the thought of putting content out there, or they get analysis paralysis where they have to fine tune every
Mhm.
single thing. And I think the key to successful marketing in general, especially in the social universe, is not outright trial and error. It's not simply just, shotgun blast, hope something sticks. It's more like, let's take a very educated guess.
Mhm.
Let's commit to the fact that we're going to learn and that we're going to iterate and adjust, and that it's okay if it's a miss.
Yeah.
And it's a completely
Mhm.
different thinking compared to traditional marketing and advertising thought, which is like, no, 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 no. This has to be surgical and perfect, and you can understand why,
Yes.
considering if you're going to spend $1 million putting a TV ad out there, that thing better damn well be great. Um,
Yes.
Whereas on social, a little bit more leniency and less of a financial commitment. Um,
The
Go ahead. Yeah.
the interesting thing is that, when people look at our social media platforms, whether it's our, our Esendemir sisters or Flatbread, and they'll be like, "Wow, this is so good, like so well thought out and well put together." I'm like, most of those photos were posted on the fly, and without much thought. There are certain parameters that we follow. Like, is this,
Sure.
does this represent our values? Does it, convey a sense of authenticity? But from that point on, it's just, oh, this is a great photo. I think I'll post it. But again, it comes down to what you said. It's a free medium. It doesn't cost me anything to crack open my phone and put it up there. So
Yeah, and I think what's great is the phone. The phone really changed the game. I mean, that's
mhm.
being able to shoot really good photography on the fly, video on the fly, and interact with these methods is just it's an absolute world changer. I'm excited to see what happens next.
I'm a
Around the
little
corner.
scared, but
I'm scared too. I mean, obviously, it's probably gonna have to do something with implants in your brain, um, but so you did a great job on building the Flatbread Grill brand, and
mhm.
then 10 years after the start, or a little over 10 years after the start of that brand, you guys launched Thumbread, like you mentioned, is a CPG retail brand. Um, tell us, what is Thumbread? Like, not the brand, but the actual bread. What is it, and how has this taken off for you?
So I the Sunbread is something that Arzu, my little, I call her my little sister. She hates it, but she's still younger than me, even though it's not
Forever.
by that much. So she's my little sister. She was really the powerhouse behind that. I just took her ideas and I ran with it and expounded on it. She was intent that in she, just from like her business sense, that we needed differentiation, and the differentiation was going to come from making our own specialty breads. Not really thinking about, nobody knew anything about making any kind of specialty bread. So she learned. She's a master baker. It's almost scary how good she's become. Um, and it was just something she saw in her head and wanted to bring it to life. And it's a, recipe that she tweaked over the years and became phenomenal. Um, it was something we talked about a lot. We were open for a couple of weeks, and the New York Times ate there and they loved it. And when they put the review and the article out, it was pretty much, the title of it was "Breads That Are Flat and Flavorful." So it was, for us, it was like, oh wow, like people are noticing our bread. That's
Hmm.
interesting. And then seeing, teenagers and children were really drawn to it. And they would come in and they would ask for thumb bread. It was just a very versatile bread. Like, I don't want to sound too salesy, but when people are like, "Oh, what was the purpose of it?" We needed a bread that was flexible, that we could use across our entire menu. We had an extensive menu, so we had salads and soups, platters. We had panini. So we wanted a bread that we could use for pretty much everything, and thumb bread became that. And then, of course, people started buying it individually. Um, and again, like, it was just something we talked about, and one day we just went for it. We did it. Arzu came up with an interesting packaging idea. I built the prototype, and then we took it to market, and we did a little test run in a local specialty retail chain, did really well. So we thought, okay, well, we do have something. We're not just, it's not just in our minds like, oh, we have this special bread and people love it. Like, people really do love it. And it's out there in the world now, making its around. And where we are, wherever we've put it so far, it's done really well. And considering it's a brand new product, like, people are picking it up and they're interested in it. We're starting to get emails in and DMs about the product. So it's nice to see it gaining some traction
I love
after
that.
having done it for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like, I mean, it's true innovation. So there's two things I want to comment on there. One is, just as I think hummus is very indicative of the culture, the bread is too. I mean,
Yes.
like, fantastic bread is something notable, and it does
Hmm.
vary from culture to culture, and actually subculture to subculture. I mean,
Hmm.
the kind of bread that you get in a certain part of Israel, for instance, would be different than another part. So it is such a hallmark and something that
Hmm.
is truly ownable. So that's amazing. The other one that I think is really that I really want to unpack here is the CPG world could not be further away from the restaurant world, and I don't think restaurateurs always understand that. That
Absolutely.
the jargon is different, the terminology, the need is different, the consumer state is different, the speed,
Margins.
all of it. Yeah, all of it is different. And so you wear the CMO hat there. Arzu wears the CEO hat. How
Everything
has
hat.
that shift, or the everything hat? Great. Oh, that's what good CEOs do, right?
Yeah,
um,
everything.
how do you guys even begin to pivot when you're talking about flatbread grill needs versus thumb bread? And then where's that overlap? I mean, just how do you even begin to answer that question? I don't know,
That's
but
a
I'll leave it with
no,
you.
that's a great question, and I think a lot of people wonder that because um, one of the things about being a female in business, especially if you're like perky and you smile a lot, people have this ignorant misconception that everything comes easily and your ideas just fall out of the sky and land at your feet and opportunities come out, and it's not like that for us. Every we go into everything with the belief that we're going to work very hard for it. We're born to immigrant parents, and I think anyone that's first generation or second generation, you watch your parents crawl on their hands and knees. You already have that implanted in you that anything I go for in life is going to be a struggle that I have to work my butt off for. So there's never a sense of entitlement, like, I'm just going to take this product to market and everybody's going to open doors for me. We kind of knew that there were going to be a set of challenges, but we did have the foundation of our brand. It's hard to compete. It's hard to kind of take away from us that we've been in this industry, and a very, very tough industry, self-funded for all of these years, as owner operators. And the pivot was easy only because we had been so hands-on with this product for so long. We had the data we needed. Like, we know that we were selling millions of sandwiches on it. We got to interact with customers. 5-year-old can walk into your restaurant and ask for a piece of thumb bread. That says a lot because for especially for Gen Z, bread is not on their top list of things that they
That's
they
right.
think about. So we already had the data there, and we had the foundation, and we had the Flatbread Grill brand, which is quite, it's strong. We have a worldwide social media following. We've gotten major press for it. So once we had the packaging idea in place, and that was there, that we knew we were going to market with something that was different and unique, and the branding was there, the trademarks were there, all of that stuff. Once the identity lined up for us, taking it out into the world was, I don't want to say it was a piece of cake, but it's just a matter of getting in front of the right people, the right distribution. At this point, I think the most difficult thing for us was assessing the price point and the margins. And in the restaurant industry, you compromise a lot on your margins because sometimes you don't have a choice because economic conditions, or Cisco might give you a higher price for your tomatoes, and there's a storm in California and you have no choice to pay double for your lettuce, so you compromise on your margins. In CPG, you can't do that. because
Yeah.
it will, you set your price, you don't get to change your price unless you really want to upset your retail partners. Um, and you can't, you have to pad it and make sure that you're making money, because this is, even in the restaurant industry, you'll hit times where you have no cash flow, or you just have to like survive and cut your payroll, cut your portions, increase your prices. You don't get to do that with CPG. So that's, I think that that's one of the biggest things that's different for me from what I'm seeing, is that if I tell someone that this is our price, I can never go back and say, hey, actually, just kidding, I'm sorry. Like, um,
Yeah,
because
we
you only
messed
really get
up.
one. Yeah, you only get one chance. I mean, a lot is changing. Like right now, then a lot of suppliers are, because they're having so many supply chain issues, that they'll do, okay, we're going to increase our price in 3 months, but um, that's it's not something you can do overnight. Like, you can raise your menu prices overnight if you wanted to. Your customers will adjust, and it's not like
That's right.
that in CPG.
Yeah, it's
Um,
slower and more rigid comparatively.
Yes, that's
Um,
exactly it. Things take, in our restaurants. I mean, building a restaurant always took at least 6 months to a year for us, no matter where we were going, because we were always renting spaces that were not, they were not restaurants. So, um, in the restaurant industry, you can do things rather quickly. You want to do delivery, you get on a new third party app, you want to put in a self ordering kiosk, you update your menu. CPG, we're having conversations with people now for 2000, 2023, and it's like, it seems like so far out, but that's how the planning goes. It's everything takes forever. You have to have multiple meetings. In the restaurant industry, you get instantaneous feedback. The customer will almost always let you know right away, like, I hate your product, I love your product. And if they don't tell you to your face, they'll go on Yelp, right?
that's
So
right.
in the CPG industry, it's not like that. Sometimes you could send a sample out and you're waiting 2 weeks to hear back, or like we've been in one of our retail partners since February, and we're just starting to get data back now. It's almost the end of April. Now we're starting to
Wow.
get customer feedback and sales figures. So it definitely does move a lot slower in this world. And so that's one thing that's frustrating, because when you have a product that you feel like it's ready for the world, you kind of have to go at everybody else's pace, which can be frustrating.
Oh, insanely. I think that's a surefire way to get me into a really bad mental state. I don't do well with having to wait. Um, so I
Hurry up
can't
and wait.
imagine. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you rush to get what you need to get done, and then you're just waiting.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but that's amazing. I mean, making that pivot to CPG and while still maintaining a strong restaurant presence is to be lauded. And I love what you're saying about hard work. So I think it was Samuel Goldwyn who's renowned for saying, "The harder I work, the luckier I get." And that's usually what it is. I mean, I've even had
Hmm.
people say to me like, "Oh, you're lucky that you got to launch that book," and I'm like, "Lucky." I'm like, "Bro, I like worked
Yeah.
really
I'm
hard for
writing a
that."
book right now. It's definitely not as easy as people think it is. And
Yeah.
when people ask me, I'm like, just sit down and write. And they're like, that's it. Well, sit down and write. And I don't know. It's a lot of like mental
And then
keeping
edit, edit,
motivation.
edit, edit, edit,
Yes,
edit, edit,
yes.
edit. Yeah, like over and over again. Throw it all away because everything sucks. Start
Yes.
over. Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's
where I'm at
a
this week.
nightmare.
Just delete it all.
Yeah, it's not easy. Nothing is easy. Nothing
No.
worth anything is easy. But it sounds like you and your sisters have a fantastic work ethic that was instilled in you by your family.
Mhm.
I think that's something that you see common across many immigrant cultures, including even my family. My family were hard workers. I don't understand people who don't work hard. I try. I just don't
Exactly.
understand them. Um, and so and it's obviously it's bared fruit for you, and I think that's amazing. So this might be the toughest question of the entire chat. If you had one final meal, where would you eat and what would you eat and why?
This is a very difficult question, because I love food. I can go out with like a Shake Shack burger in my hands. But there's one restaurant I really love so much. And if I could go there more often, I would. And that's Wolfgang's in Times Square, Wolfgang Steakhouse. But I also am dying to try carbone or carbone, depending on if you want to
Hmm.
do the Italian pronunciation. I am dying to try them, and I have great admiration for Major Food Group, but I haven't actually ever had to been able to eat anything at their restaurants. I'm sure I could probably call one of my restaurant friends to get me a reservation.
That's right. Yeah.
Um, but I'm dying to try their lobster ravioli. So
Mm.
I think that if that would probably be my last meal. I would hope that it's as good as everyone says it is. So
Yeah.
I
That's
just love
amazing.
Italian food.
Yeah, what's not to love? I mean, I'm part Sicilian, so it's I make my own pasta, I make my own sauce, and I think that's one thing that's interesting. I love that you guys have made so many things from scratch on your
Yes.
menu.
Hmm.
I know that sounds silly, but I don't think people quite realize how many times it's a plop and drop from Cisco, and
Yes, yeah,
not
no,
always a
I'm
bad
so glad
thing.
you said that. Yeah, it's that was early on. That was one of Arzu's things with the brand. She was like, "We're going to make fresh food to order at affordable price points and serve it in a warm, casual environment." And that again, that wasn't a thing. You had fast food, and you had quick serve and full service, but
Yep.
that wasn't a thing like making from scratch. And um, people do get their hummus, stuffed grape leaves, their tzatziki from Cisco U.S. Foods, and we have always made it from scratch. I think that if we did it, my father would probably disown us. So
Yeah, there were some other repercussions.
he would be like, "Are you getting that out of a can? What are you doing?" Like it would be
Yeah.
an insult to our culture to do that. So
Oh, and it is such a different flavor, and I know most people listening to this agree, and so I'm probably preaching to the choir. But if you haven't tried to like eat bread that was made not in a factory, not that that's
yeah.
bad. Like, look, we supply
No,
chain, like you said,
I listen, I'm selling bread now. So when I go out into the field and I talk to buyers, I'm like, this is not a factory made Kaiser roll, okay? And they don't
right?
like me for saying that, but that's the truth because a lot of the bread you see out there is factory made.
That's right.
Our bread is still handmade. There's still, even though it's semi-automated, every bread still goes gets touched by us. Um, and there's a difference. There's a difference between the flour we use, the way it's mixed, the process. So yes, a lot of the bread you're seeing out there is, and there's some there are some great factory made breads
That's
and
right.
phenomenal, but they are, the essence of bread making, the art of baking is it's kind of get it's lost in
Yeah.
that factory
Well, and there's a
process.
reason why it tastes better too. And if you really think about it, like for instance, there's a place down the street here. It's a gem. It's called Star Provisions. And on
Hmm.
one side of the building is more of a cafe, everyday kind of eating. On the other side is one of the best restaurants in the city of Atlanta. Um,
Hmm.
the reason why I bring this up is the food that you're getting at the cafe is the food that they serve at the best restaurant in Atlanta,
Hmm.
including their baked goods. And when you're a bakery or a butcher, your the product that it moves so fast that you're able to make it fresh. And when you're making stuff fresh, you don't have to have additional things that give you the shelf life that you would pull off of a grocery store shelf. Again, I'm not knocking it. It has to happen. It's the way it works. But there is a notable difference in handcrafted, real food, and even down to butcher. Like when I want to have a really good meal, I'll go to Buckhead Butcher. I will spend the money, get even if it's ground beef. Like you wouldn't think ground beef. I mean, you would, but like many people wouldn't think ground beef has a scale. But really good ground beef is fantastic on burgers. It's like unbeatable
No,
compared to grocery store.
my big sister's she does a lot of the cooking for us at home, and she's always going for the expensive premium ground beef, and I used to make fun of her for it, but I get it. I totally get it. It
Yeah,
makes all the difference.
it
But
really does.
it's nice to hear that because we are premium products and are taking it out to market. It's in the bakery category and trying to explain to buyers that listen, the customer will pay a little bit more for a premium product, and once they have it, they're going to love it and they're going to keep coming back. Is That's been a big challenge for us because they are used to the factory bread. They are used
That's right.
to the I don't want to say cheaper, more affordable breads that give them better margins, that are, they're not made with premium flour. They're not hand formed. They're coming off the factory line. So that's been a challenge for us. But we're finding kind of our groove, and we're connecting with people who get it, as opposed to, just taking it out and showing it to everybody who may not necessarily get it. I think it's new ideas take a while sometimes to catch on. And I saw this
That's
with the
right.
restaurant where people are like, well, what are you doing? Like, you're starting a restaurant? That's weird, And now everyone's like, I want to start a restaurant. So, it takes sometimes newer ideas that are outside the box. Like a branded bread, artisan bread is like blowing people's mind. Like, whoa,
Right.
there's an opportunity there. So it takes a little bit of time. But I think that once it catches on, it's going to be phenomenal. So I'm
I think so
optimistic
too.
for the future.
And we're rooting
Thank
for
you.
you. We really
Thank
are.
you.
When you tell me that everybody wants to open a restaurant now, maybe it's because it was just Easter, but I'm like, forgive them, Father. They know not what they want.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
like,
I've had people I have had people say to us like, oh, I gave up my job and I started a restaurant because I saw you and your sisters on Instagram. Like, what were you thinking? What even gave you, why would you ever even think that we know what we're doing all the time? Like, do you understand like how, we know what we're doing, but I just mean like, every day we're putting out a fire,
it's a
and you
grind.
don't see that on even the people who kind of repurpose their stories of vulnerability and difficulty, to inspire, give you behind the scenes. They're still filtering their story. Like,
Absolutely.
nobody will tell you the truth of how insanely difficult it is, especially if you're you're an owner operator who is funding your own business, and you don't have VC backed money to open 100 locations and a team of like 25 director of operations. So it's
Oh, even
don't
when
be
you do
fooled.
have that, it's just a whole different set of challenges. I mean,
Yes.
it's not, in my opinion, it's not better or worse. I've seen
Yeah.
both, and it's just different and still a pain, still difficult.
Oh yeah. Especially
It's
when you have
definitely,
the money people to answer to. Yes.
that's right. They want to see their money back. So,
In the
that becomes
restaurant
really
industry,
difficult. Yeah.
nonetheless.
Well, this has been fantastic, and you've been wonderful. I heard you slightly mention that you're writing a book. So when you launch
Yes.
that, I want to have you back on. I want to talk about it.
Thank you.
And
I plan on
keep up the great
finishing. I
work.
promise. So many of my friends that are writers and authors are like, is a book coming? Is a book coming? And I'm like, someday maybe. I don't know. I have 500,000 words right now to toy around with, so
That's
it's a
good.
process.
Yeah, it's a process. It definitely is. And just like everything else, it's a grind. So
Yeah.
I hope to see it out there in the world. Thank you for your time.
Thank
This
you.
has been amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank
If
you.
you love
I
what we
really
served
enjoyed
up,
it.
please follow us at Vigor Branding on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Medium. Forktales is produced by the team at Vigor. Audio and video post-productions provided by Zencaster. Music performed by Jet Trash and licensed through musicbed.com. Joseph handles his own hair, makeup, and stunts. Copyright 2003 to 2021, Vigor Graphic Design LLC, all rights reserved.